to Out of the Box Radio with me, your host, Christine Blasdale. Out of the Box Radio is a weekly podcast of audible ear candy dedicated to bringing a fresh perspective on this thing that we call life. And each and every week, we're going to be diving into the topics that matter most with lively conversations on issues such as health, wellness, and transformational healing, all with the goal of creating a better world and becoming a happier human being. I will be your tour guide for this epic adventure, and each and every week, we're going to be embarking on a journey with the ultimate goal being transformation to our highest potential. And now, let's get out of the box. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Out of the Box Radio. I am your host, Christine Blasdale, and you are in for a big treat. If you have children, if you know of children, if you were a child yourself at one time, which means this is for everybody. The show is for every single person. I have a wonderful guest today, Dr. Siggie Cohen. You know, parents often refer to her as the child whisperer for her unparalleled depth of insight in working with children. She is a developmental child and family specialist, and for more than 35 years, she has worked intensively with children and families, first as a teacher and then as a child development specialist. Her approach has proven successful in helping parents and teachers deepen their understanding of children's behaviors, which is hugely important. And she's going to be giving us some beautiful gems of wisdom this hour. So please sit back, relax, pour yourself a glass of wine maybe, and welcome to the program, Dr. Siggie Cohen. Dr. Cohen, Dr. Siggie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. My pleasure. That was a great introduction. Thank you.
Did you like that?
I did. I was listening intently. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of reasons why I have you on the show today. I think what you bring to the table is so valuable. But first, let's just, for our listeners, to give them a little bit of a background, why don't you tell them a little bit about your experience, how you got to the point you are right now today, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty about kids and their little brains and their wonderful feelings. But just let our listeners know a little bit. How did you get into this type of, first of all, in this type of work?
It is a long journey, no doubt. It starts with just an ability to be around children and feel very confident and comfortable and actually happy. Many years ago, as just a camp counselor, a supervisor once told me, you know, every time I watch you around children, and I was just barely in my 20s, you are always smiling. So yeah, I started my journey just basically working as a camp counselor, preschool teacher. I did try to do other things and somehow always came back to working with children. So being in a classroom, being around children, was always very comfortable. I think that because I went back to school and definitely wanted to further my education, wanted to do more, I had this big idea to be a college instructor, a college professor, which I then became one. But through some request, people asked me, because they started realizing that I talk a lot about parenting, to do a parenting workshop. And I did. And I thought, I'm probably going to maybe they will last about 3 hours with me or 3 sessions with me. And it lasted over a year. So they kept coming back because I thought, what exactly can I give them? What information or experience will I be able to share with them? But it happened to be actually extremely enriching for both of us. And from that, that group grew and other groups also started. So I was doing more and more parenting, and then I opened my private practice. I think that all along, no matter what professional experience I was acquiring along the way, of course, I became a mom myself and got that experience hands-on, and I never, ever forgot myself as a child. And so I think that I bring that when when parents talk to children today, besides the fact that I know what they're going through because I've been through it all, I know how difficult it is. I also can hear and feel what the child is actually hearing and feeling. So I almost have like both sides of the coin. And I think that allows me to help both child and parent when they are struggling.
And you mentioned that you have children yourself. How many children do you have?
I have 3 of my own children, plus I raised another child from my daughter from another mother. So she was 16 when she came to live with me, and she left when she was 30. So I mean, on and off. She's not a child anymore. And I definitely helped a lot in raising my sister's children. Maybe some few friends. Children were always with me. I was very good at just, sure, come on. Yes, you can stay over. And yes, of course, I'll pick you up. And yes, you can, ask me any question or I'll give you support. So yes, I'm around children no matter what, even in my personal life.
And I think that, again, the skill set that you have is so vitally important right now for families that have, 2 parents in the household, but also for single parents, single fathers, single mothers as well. Can you let our listeners know, this is the question that was on the top of my list. What are the, even, I know there's a lot, and it depends on the age of the child, but what would you say is the number one, or let's say the top 3 issues that you deal with regarding children, and talking with their parents? What are the top 3 issues that you come across in your work?
A lot of misunderstanding and misinterpretations of children's behaviors. So I would say that most parents misinterpret what the child is actually saying or doing. So that is the number one issue that I see. Another one, and we can go more into that and what it actually means in on a regular basis. I think another one is parents are wonderfully, and I want to say definitely wonderfully involved in their children's life, but they are involved more as fixers, as hoverers, and as the ones that have all the answers to everything, as opposed to just be present and witness and validate and mirror what their children are doing or going through. So that's another definite issue I run into all the time. Letting parents know that it's okay to pull back, that being present in their child's life doesn't mean you have to constantly tell them what to do, micromanage every action, give advice about every little thing. I think it just ends up in a lot more frustration than support, and really hinders children and their growth. They become, or they remain, so much more needy, not self-sufficient, not self-reliant, and it's a vicious cycle.
And I'm wondering too that there's, with the advent of so much, right now, what we would, well, maybe a few years ago, what we would say would be a behavioral issue, acting out, or certain things. There seems to be a lot more labeling of children, ADHD, attention deficit disorder. There is the rise, and it's a proven rise of autism. Are you finding in your practice that you're dealing with a lot more children that have these issues that they're dealing with?
Yes, but I think the answer is somewhat because we really are better at diagnosing these types of disorders or difficulties and delays. I think that it looks as if there's more. It is possible that what aids or what adds to the problem is much more anxiety than ever before, more pressure, less child-centered preschools and less child-centered curriculum in general, more academics starting earlier, which adds to the stress and anxiety that younger children feel, and therefore we can see maybe potentially less attentiveness and more hyperactivity and so on. Overall, I think we're just better at seeing specific issues and maybe targeting them for the sake of really, the idea is actually to help all children and to better each one for their own potential. It's true that maybe we are over-medicating, we are over-labeling as a disorder without enough interventions. So I often will say something like, so let's say your child is ADHD. Okay, now what? What does that mean? So we put a label. It's not like from that moment on, it's like, oh, okay, he's ADHD. Now we have to do the work. And you know what? Whether he's ADHD or not, there's still a lot of work to be done. So it's parenting, it's schoolwork, school support, parents and school working together, curriculum that maybe aligns itself better with the differences of children. And so those are the things that we have to look into, not just the actual label, but what comes next and after the label.
Exactly. And you had mentioned that there is we also have to take in consideration the level of anxiety and stress. Do you think, in your professional opinion, are we asking kids to grow up too quickly, or what is the missing element there?
Yes, I don't know that we're asking them to grow up, but it's an oxymoron, but we are in a way taking their childhood away. And we are taking their childhood away with one actually main factor, less play. It's almost as if play is now a reward as opposed to a necessity. Children need to play. They literally need to play, like they need air and they need food and they need comfort and safety. They need to play. That is how they learn. This is how they grow. This is how they balance themselves. This is how they become problem solvers and creative thinkers and so on and so forth. Self-regulated, which is one of the biggest problems we see today. It's not the ADHD that is a problem. You know, I wouldn't include autism in that because it's not a behavioral or emotional. It's an emotional behavioral lacking. It's not that type of a disorder in that sense that you can fix it or you can undo it. You can't. But ADHD and ADD are not necessarily fixable, but 100% manageable with many different tools and tactics. One of them is helping children learn to self-regulate, and that is done by giving them more time to actually play and find their own way through whatever the chaos of academics and social structure is. So this would be one route. If we're looking at what are children missing today, not enough play, the pressure for them, it's not necessarily to become adults, but to become functional, to become responsible, to become or to be functional and responsible way too early. I find it, and it's not that I'm excusing children. Oh, you know, boys will be boys. They can break and they can hit. No, that's not the point. But boys are boys, and girls are girls, and children are children. So if a little girl wants to color more than she wants to do math, or a little boy wants to also color or draw more than he wants to read, and they're only 5 or 6, maybe we should let them, because they have many more years to actually get to the academics. And by rushing it, we're not doing any kind of service to them.
Exactly. You know, something that happened to me personally as a child, and I thank the teachers who came up with it, because I was with my mother who spoke one language. Number one, I spoke English, but not super well. But also, I was around so many adults as a child, very, very young. I was around almost all adults, very few children. And so when it was time for me to go to kindergarten, the teachers noticed that I would rather talk to the teachers. I was not socializing so much with kids and playing with the kids as much. And they actually kept me back. So I went to kindergarten twice. And the reason was because they said, she needs to be able to play, and she needs to be able to socialize and with other children. And I think that was actually quite a wise move, now looking back. But those were teachers that had the ability to notice and to do something about that as well.
Right. I think that there is a definite trend to rush out of childhood. It's not just cute asking a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's almost like an agenda. You need to start thinking about what you want to be when you grow up.
No. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I didn't even know what I wanted to be when I went into college and I had to get a degree.
Exactly.
I still didn't end up doing that stuff.
And no one does. That's the thing, that really no one does. And I often say college is a wonderful thing, more for growth and independence. And it's a rite of passage between maybe childhood to adulthood. But it's not about picking your major. It's about other life skills. But the other thing I wanted to say about that, the rush out of childhood, is that we sometimes truly forget that with longevity now, we do live so much longer, right? 80, 87, I don't know, something like that. And so we're thinking, okay, 18 years of childhood, and then the rest is adulthood. Like, what exactly is waiting for us in adulthood that we are rushing our children out of childhood? There's so many years to be an adult. It's okay to stay a child another year. Early childhood, it's a benefit, because when they say we're only children once, it's true.
Yes.
It doesn't repeat itself ever.
And as a child, your only job is to just explore. And I mean, at least I remember as a kid having the ability to play, and that was just as important as anything else, was the idea of play and using my imagination. Now, I grew up in a very different era than children today. Children today have a lot of smartphones, electronic devices, iPads. When I grew up, and it's not like a thing where, well, when I was a kid, I walked 8,000 miles in the snow with no shoes. No.
Right.
But we didn't have a lot. We had very, very little, and so we were able to use our imaginations, right? And almost because you had to use your imagination, it wasn't all presented for you. And I think that there is a generational gap where maybe when we were children, we had that ability to use our imagination more to create things out of nothing or very little. And today, there is such an emphasis on having things, very fast and readily available. And of course, the advent of the electronic media. That's my other question. That's a big one. Yeah. I'm seeing kids younger and younger, Dr. Siggie. I'm seeing children very young with smartphones, iPads, tablets. I wanted to know what your take is on that, and not just a phone, like in case of an emergency, because they always say, "Oh, in case my child needs me, they need to have a phone." That's different. Right. That's different than what they're being utilized for. But what's your take on the technology revolution, so to speak?
So I think it is part of our children's lives, and we can't actually take it away. And I believe in moderation, and I believe in toning down hysteria. So I don't want to be hysterical around all the technology, because this is where our children are. This is their world. So I don't want to rob them off of it. I don't want to pretend like it doesn't exist. And also, I don't want to create any kind of manipulation and fear tactics, sort of like who's controlling what, and how. So I sometimes look at it as not how much time they're spending on any technology, but what else they're doing. And what else they're doing is some of it up to their parents, because I notice how parents use technology as reward and punishment. And I say, you can just use it as your own parental right. You can allow your child to use the whatever the technology is, and then you can just say, we're done. It doesn't have to be a reward or a punishment. And what shall I do now? I'm bored. And right there is, the problem that I said before, is the over managing and the micromanaging of go do this, go do that, you have this, I buy you so much. Being bored is actually a motivator. So allowing children to say, I'm bored, and then responding, yeah, I can imagine. It's okay to be bored. And somehow boredom passes through a child, and then they find something else to do. Obviously, also maybe exploring and exposing them to different things, going on, I don't know, nature walk or around the block, wherever you are. Going to a museum, going to the beach. I mean, you don't have to spend a lot of money just to take your child elsewhere outside of the house and just do stuff. Of course, yeah, reading a book, doing a puzzle, playing dominoes, cooking in the kitchen, doing yard work, anything that you are letting them see that the world is made of many different pieces in this one big quilt called life. So it's not how much they spend on the technology, it's what else they're doing. What else are you able to offer your child that is there for them to explore?
The biggest complaint that I hear from parents when it comes to technology is that their children are becoming addicted to it, to the point of, 8-10 hours a day, which I don't know how they figure that in, but they a lot of kids, they manage themselves to do that, but that they become so addictive that when they don't have access to it, or if your parent says, please, put down your phone, let's go for a walk, let's do this, let's do that, the child is upset because they don't want to leave the social media world, or where their friends are chatting or whatever. There's less interaction between humans, and more through the screens. And the parents say, if the internet goes down, if the Wi-Fi is down, or their phone is acting up, they have a meltdown. And so I'm thinking that the addiction might also be to the feeling of always being connected to someone. And I don't know if that's true or not.
So if we're looking at it as an addiction, and in some ways, yeah, I agree, it does act as an addiction, because the panic that someone has when they don't have it, right? And like you said, the meltdown the children can have when suddenly it's taken away from them. So if we're looking at it as an addiction, we are actually supposed to get through the panic and the trauma of losing the time with the technology, and then seeing that, it's a cliche, but yeah, there's life after that. And so I am able to actually begin to understand that there's time with technology, and I'm okay, and I love it, and it's wonderful. And then there's time off of it, and I don't actually break down and go through extreme withdrawal. But parents have to be able to allow their children to have some of that meltdown and anxiety without seeing it as defiance or just inappropriate bad behavior. They can validate, yes, this is actually difficult. Being connected to something and then it's not there is very it's very stressful and frustrating, sometimes sad even. But what they actually have tested that with high schoolers who are always with their phones, and they started taking their phones away, and they said that the first day that they did it, the kids were all so anxious and uptight. They I don't think they did it in the US. They did somewhere else. But by the third day, the children actually were very relaxed and calm. So suddenly, once you get through that maybe withdrawal symptoms of same as addiction, losing something that you feel so dependent on and you feel like you can't do without, but you get through it and suddenly there is calm after that storm. There is life after that, and you begin to realize I am a little too codependent on it, or even extremely codependent, and that codependency is actually causing me anxiety. So
Right.
learning to separate from it, realizing that eventually there is some sense of comfort and calm that comes with it, and the fun or whatever the technology, it can always come back, and we can learn to balance, we can learn to moderate and regulate,
Right.
as opposed to being extremely anxious and dependent on it.
Well, and I think it's this fear or feeling that I'm missing out.
Right.
Everybody else is online, mom, and I'm not, and now I'm going to be looked at as a freak, feeling left out, feeling like you're not doing what other kids are doing, and having that in your mindset that you need to be part of the, and I think that's very primal, like from our cave dwelling days, perhaps. If you were part of the tribe, or the clan, you were able to stay in the cave, and you were protected in many respects because the dinosaurs outside, they wouldn't get you. But if you did not, if you were not part of that tribe, you were kicked out or you were pushed out for some reason, it would be a very isolating, fearful place, and probably your chances of survival would be much smaller. So I think that's also something it's maybe hardwired in the human being in many respects. But that's just my own philosophical thoughts. Okay, so I'm going to throw out some stuff for you, and then you're going to give us your tips on dealing with these issues. So you have a child at home. Let's say it's either they're on vacation. Okay, they're on school holidays. There's no school. So it's summer vacation, let's say,
Okay.
or it's the weekend, and they have the most dreaded 2 words, I guess, from some parents. I'm bored.
I'm bored.
Mommy, I'm bored. Mom, I'm bored. I'm bored. What does Dr. Siggie say? What do you recommend for parents to do?
Right. So the parents of today micromanaging their children cannot stand this statement.
I
know. and I understand parents why they can't stand this statement, because it seems to them as if their child, and this is the parental interpretation. When you tell me you're bored, you are devaluing everything I do for you and everything I give you. And look at your room that is filled wall to wall with toys that I buy you and stuff that you have. And you have a mind, and how can you not think? And it goes on and on like that, into the panic of parents. What is wrong with my child? So I want to say, being bored is just part of a human condition. Children that say I'm bored is just a way to connect to a parent sometimes, because they know they're going to get their attention. The attention that they're seeking is not tell me what to do, but hear me. Hear me. Hear my emotion. Because, for instance, if a child says, I'm sad, uh, let's talk about it. What are you sad about? And what does it mean? And, oh, can you share with me? So suddenly it's an opening for a conversation, right? To connect. So I'm bored is no different. So it's not go do something, or you have so many things you can do, or what's wrong with you that you can't think of what to do. It's, do you want to talk about it? And kids, most of that, no, I'm just bored.
No.
Yeah, I know. You expect me to tell you to go do something, but no, I'm not going to tell you to go do whatever, because you can tell yourself to do that. You have a mind, and you 100% can tell yourself. But I hear you. Yeah, sometimes we're bored.
Yeah.
And
it's okay.
it is okay. You want to know something? I want to say it's not just okay. It's actually a good thing.
That's right. And I would tell the child, I'd say, wait till you're in your 40s and 50s and you have to work a bunch and pay bills and deal with the mortgage. You will be wishing you were bored. No,
right.
I'm kidding.
No, you're
I'm
not
kidding.
going to say that.
I'm not going to say that, but I just thought I'd put that out there. It was funny.
I know. But you want to know something? You know why you're not going to say that? Not because it's not true, or your child's going to roll their eyes and go, oh, Mom, really? But because 100% they don't believe you. Because in their mind, when I am older, life will be exactly as I want, and there won't be a single problem.
Right.
I will never have to work. Somehow I'll have money, or I will only work if I want to, and somehow still I'll have money. And of course, I'll never be bored because I can do whatever I want. You see?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter that it makes no sense, but in their mind, it does. I will not be bored because I can do whatever I want. One thing doesn't actually relate to the other.
Right.
But that's how children think. So we don't actually say anything when they say I'm bored, except for having some compassion. Yeah, I get that. Sometimes we're bored.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? I remember moments of my childhood too, and being bored, and it was usually around the long stretch of time being away from school. Summer vacations would be that. But it also, without having someone rush in to save me, rush in to fix it, it allowed me the opportunity to become creative, to use my imagination, to come up with things, to do some trial and error, to have some self-reliance, that it's not the responsibility of my parent to necessarily keep me stimulated all the time or to have things for me. It's actually something that I can do. And it gave me a great sense of accomplishment when I was able to come up with, because I was bored, Dr. Siggie, I was able to come up with the most awesome, lemonade stands, and I had like a little business, of taking my dolls and trading them in. We did swaps. I was like, I don't like my doll anymore. Do you like your doll? No, I don't hate my doll. Okay, I'll give you my doll. You give me your doll. We would come up with things because we had to.
Yeah, it's true. It is a self-motivator, a self-reliant mechanism. It definitely brings up creativity, responsibility even, because suddenly you do something completely on your own that you thought about it, and you're like, wow, I actually thought about it. No one told me to do it. No one told me how to do it. So you're right. It's a very, very strong sense of accomplishment, being bored and getting through it, as opposed to being bored and then being told by your parent what it is that you're supposed to do, or what is wrong that you're not doing what you should be doing, and so on and so forth, which is just a back and forth of frustration.
Right.
It's not
both are, and both parties are equally frustrated by that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Another thing that I would love to have you talk about, and it's also from my own personal experience, but like millions and millions of families are experiencing this. You have you have a situation where you have children and you have a parent, and let's say it's, one parent, they either have shared custody or they have full custody of the children or a child. And eventually that person meets up with someone who they love and adore. They want to be with that person. They want to live with that person. They want to marry them, perhaps. And so you have someone coming into the household who is new to the children in many respects and is another person in the house. And those dynamics, I know personally, just even from when I was a kid, and if my father remarried or when my mother remarried, and dealing with the step parent, and like, who are you?
Right.
What are you doing here? And are you going to take all the attention?
Mom.
Yeah. Are you going to take all the attention away from me because you are a new addition to this family? But I would say probably in your practice, you're dealing with that more frequently now than, let's say, 30 or 40 years ago they would have probably. But let's talk about some of those dynamics, some of those things that happen, and how people can step up to those wonderful moments and challenges. But what are some tips and tricks maybe that you might be able to give people that are going through that, both for the maternal or paternal parent and then the person that's coming in who wants to have these children be part of their lives?
Right, absolutely. So with 60% divorce rate, we do have a lot of blended families, and it is just the modern aspect of what family or the family nuclear is today. So it is definitely a real issue and a very relevant one. I often say no one ever says when I grow up I want to be a step parent, and no child ever be.
Because it just sounds like a notch below, or
Exactly.
or you're gonna step on me. It doesn't sound so. Yeah. Grand would be great, but grandparent is taken.
Right, and maybe we should come up with a different terminology, right? Different titles for that, because think of also how evil stepmom concept is ingrained in humanity.
Thanks, Cinderella.
Yes, absolutely. That I can say that almost every, honestly, really nice person can become an evil step parent. And that's not okay. And almost every really nice child can become an evil stepchild. But with that say, and I want to say one other thing about it. It is extremely difficult to blend the family. So we want to walk into this already knowing this is a challenge. I mean, look, we're talking about parenting, and parenting is a challenge. I love my child, and I'm still struggling. So now I'm supposed to love someone else's child. That is very difficult because children are hard to love. They don't make it easy. I'm sorry. We only love them because they're ours.
Because they're ours, right?
Yes. But no, they don't make it easy to be loved by anyone else. So now this person is put in a position to parent, to share, to love, maybe to take care of a child that's not theirs. And they don't get a lot of perks. Barely parents get any perks, right? I mean, how often do children say thank you and I love you? Maybe when they're little, but it does subside. And of course, step parents barely get any of that. So we want to have eyes wide open and look into that saying, okay, this is not easy. Now, some other concepts that we absolutely have to understand. All children wish and pray and pray and wish their parents get back together. Yeah. And so that person stepping in is now crushing their dream, their fantasy, their pray to, their deepest prayer to God, literally. And I don't mean that children are born religion. They're born religious, they just have this ability to pray to God, whether we teach them or not. It's not about,
Right.
whether it's so they do that, they pray. So we need to understand that as well, that really all they want is their parents to get back together. And we have to have an open conversation, even with young children, especially with young children. I know that you want mommy and daddy, mommy and mommy, daddy and daddy, it doesn't matter, to be back together. They want their original set of parents.
Right.
And how do we tell them that they're not going to get that? But it's not to give up on praying, if that's what they want to do, or wishing. Because it is true that sometimes we don't exactly get what we wish for. And sometimes, even if we pray, it doesn't mean that our prayers are not heard. Because if a child believes in that higher power, we don't want to crush that for them.
Right.
We can let them know still that life is much more complicated and complex than just that one wish that they're making. So, mom and dad are not going to get back together. It's not going to happen. And it's hard. And now we need to sit with that loss, and we need to repeat that so they understand that we do understand, first of all, that they are grieving something.
Recognize it, and right.
Yes. And then we want to maybe define what is this other person. So the fact that adults love each other doesn't mean that instantly children are connected, but practice does make better. So being in their life on a regular basis creates consistency, familiarity, and because of that, reliability. I think that step parents should maybe learn some of the of what the children are struggling with, understand their role, define what their role is. It's not an easy one. And then that the step parent is part of the support system.
Exactly. So that there's not just two adults that are absolutely interested in their highest good and the best for them, but then there is now another person who is also concerned about them and that they can trust and rely on. But that takes time. I know that takes time to develop those relationships.
Yeah. And especially being honest about it. The moment, you don't have to say we're not always going to get along. I mean, you can say that, but the moment that we're not getting along, we can say, yeah, people sometimes don't get along. It's not because I'm a step parent that I am not getting along with you.
Right.
It's because we sometimes run into frictions and we don't agree. I'm still an adult, so if I'm in charge, maybe I still have to tell you what to do right now, because I am in charge. And that's another thing that children need to know, that grown-ups, no matter who they are, when they are with children, they are in charge of them, and they're responsible
for them, exactly.
A child saying, you're not my mom, don't tell me what to do, I can say, you're absolutely right, I'm not your mom. And I can still tell you what to do because I'm a grown-up. And right now you're with me. So you're my responsibility. And that's why I'm telling you what to do, not because I'm your mom. Teachers tell you what to do, and they're not your mom or dad. So just expand on that. Children are very good at hit and run. And you want to be not, don't be scared. Okay. Just get hit, it's fine.
And have plenty of wine handy. No, I'm kidding. Also, when you had, it's interesting because as far as that fairy tale or that wish that your parents, deep down inside with a lot of children, they just want their mommy and daddy or their mommy and mommy to be together. No matter what. And it's so interesting because I think also I was so intensively attached to my mother and her emotions. I felt her very strongly. When I was probably about 4 or 5, I recall it was a teacher, it was some adult who had said, "Oh, they had put the energy out there of how sad is it that your parents divorced. How sad is it that you're in a broken home kind of energy, right?" And
Right.
I remember telling them, I said, "I'm so happy that they are not together anymore, and I want to thank them." And I actually thanked my parents when I was, I think, 5. I thanked them for divorcing. And part of that was because I saw the dynamics of them together and the dysfunction and the arguing, and it was more one-sided. It was a definitely dysfunctional home, the marriage itself. But I remember being very grateful that they had split up, and I turned it around to that person who had said, "What a shame," to, "Are you kidding? Like, I have 2 homes now. I have 2 bedrooms. I have 2 Christmases. I have 2 birthdays. I'm the luckiest kid in the world because I have these 2 worlds that are actually in very different," because my parents were complete opposites. Completely. But I had 2 different worlds. And then eventually when they remarried, because, you can't ask your parent to be single for the rest of their entire life and just look after you. But when they remarried later on, again, I was able to bring in that step parent as someone that was a support for me, but because of the way I looked at it. And so my advice and not that children are listening to this podcast, or maybe they are, is that also when you do have parents that split up or divorce, or one parent flees from another parent, realize too that that's done under a great deal of duress as well. My mom tried to stick it out for as long as she could, and she needed to, for her own safety and state of mind, and for us as well.
Right.
So I always I thank her for that too.
Wow.
So it's I guess it's all in how you look at it as well.
It's interesting that you came to that realization on your own. No one told you. And like you say, you felt your mom, and maybe you felt even somewhat responsible for her well-being. So you wanted her protected. And so you
Very much
felt
so.
like
Yes.
she was doing the right thing, right? And it's true, young children can definitely read their parent and side. If there's more than one child, they may actually split, their loyalties and how and who they think the right parent is and the wrong parent, right?
Right.
And we do want to tell them, as much as possible, we don't want to involve them too much in the parental or the adult world. So here's another thing to tell children. It is very hard when your parents are divorced. We never want to feel sorry for them, like you said. "Oh, you're from a broken home." That's terrible. We want to help children live whatever life and circumstances they have and get the best out of it. So we want to give them support and empathy and understanding, but certainly not feel sorry for them, because that's not a good thing. But we can let them know when their parents are not together. A lot of children will ask why. And we want to say, adults do have problems that are very difficult to explain to children. And we don't always have to actually explain. We are very sorry. We have definitely compassion and sadness in our hearts for the fact that we're going through this and you're going through this. But we're not going to explain what exactly led to that. So it's best to keep them out of it. What we can promise is that we will always love you and take care of you.
Yes. Yeah, that's critical.
Yeah, and that's a very important thing. And maybe we can, sometimes, I've heard and I've told parents, you can say, one day you will be an adult and you will have grown-up problems that you will have to deal with. Right now you're a child. And only adults deal with adults' problems, not children.
So
But
important. Yeah, you nailed
yeah,
it. I think that's one of the most important things. And as a child of divorce, I will say this to any parent. As a child of divorce, do not berate or belittle or say negative things to your child about the other parent. I had two parents, one who never belittled or said anything negative, bad about the other, and then the other, which was constant negativity about my other parent. And what adults don't understand is that children are connected and they love both parents. It doesn't matter if one of them is mean, cruel, doesn't matter. They are also part. So when you say, I hate your father, he's a no good nothing, or your mother is a blah, 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 you're actually saying that to the child.
that's right.
And
You are
most people
saying it directly to the child. It's very true.
most people don't realize. They say, no, I'm not saying that to my baby. I'm saying that about my deadbeat former husband, or I'm saying that about my slutty ex-wife. No, you're saying
No.
that to the child,
Right.
and they will be impacted by that. And so that's very, very important on how we talk to children after divorce as well.
It's true. You can again take responsibility for the fact that your marriage didn't work out for whatever reason. It's not necessarily because just the other person is evil. And it's very true that children are connected to both parents, and it is important that they are connected to both parents because it's connected directly to how they feel about themselves. And so you instill hatred, or you spread hatred, and it just remains with them. They become hateful, and you never actually know. You think they're going to hate the other parent, but more so than not, they actually at some point side with the other parent because that parent becomes an idealized figure, or to split or a kind of like disconnect or individuate themselves from a parent, which is just a natural thing to do. They may run to the other one and suddenly think that oh, you hate that parent, but I love that parent. So you see, I'm not you. We're different, and so on. So no matter what, it impacts the child and it hurts them tremendously for life. And another thing, children have a very different relationship with their parents than adults have with each other. It's not the same, right? Parent-child and marriage, it's not the same thing. And, if your father's not a nice person, I don't know, maybe at some point you will find out on your own. And maybe you will be able to actually tell your father yourself, you're
Right.
not being very nice, because you want to empower. Like children will come and complain about the other parent. And parents are like, oh, what? He did that. Oh, and you're like, maybe, first of all, they like to fuel sometimes and add to the mix. And you're not always sure why they're doing it. They have an agenda. So you have to be very careful by hearing their stories. And the other thing is you can empower them by, if your father or your mother said this or did that and you didn't like, why don't you talk to them? Why didn't you say, I didn't like that?
That's very empowering. That's very empowering. And also recognizing when they do not step to their parent, but let's say when they are able to stand up and say, I don't like it when you talk bad about mom, and I really wish you didn't because it makes me feel bad. That is heroic. That is huge to be able to say that to a parent and stand your ground. And of course, you still love that parent, but at the same time, to be able to speak, it's very, very it's very huge, especially for a child to do that to an adult.
Right. To love a parent and still not always agree with them kindly. It's okay.
Yes. Oh, okay. Boys versus girls. Boys or girls? Which one's harder to raise, Siggie?
So I remember when one of my boys, I think early high school came to me one day because I have three boys, right? And he said, "Wow, you always wanted a girl, right? And you always wish you had a girl, and wow, girls are really hard." So it's like, you're lucky that you don't have girls, because he suddenly discovered.
He discovered girls.
I think so. So it was like, oh, you're lucky. You need to be thankful. Girls are definitely easy in some ways. They're pleasers. They're easier to communicate. They tend to be kinder, more patient, more helpful. But then they go through adolescence much more intensely than
Intensely.
boys.
That was very well put.
I don't want to say, melodramatically.
No.
But
I can't find my favorite shirt.
yes, I hate this. Right. So I think at some point, boys, they are reactive, they're impulsive, they're busy. They're not very helpful. They're much more egocentric. But then during adolescence, they're not great at communicating, but they're not so dramatic. So that makes it a little easier.
Yes.
And it is important to pay attention when they are adolescents just to safety issues. If I were to raise one most important issue during adolescence, I say, parents, drop everything. Nothing matters. Let's just keep them alive first.
Let's just keep them alive.
Everything else, the room will be clean one day. It doesn't matter now.
As long as they're breathing.
Yes.
That's good.
Let's just keep them alive. But
I love that. Thank you so much, Dr. Siggie Cohen. Thank you, Dr. Siggie, for joining us. We could go on and on. I would love to have you back. Will you come back on Out of the Box Radio?
Sure, I would love that. Thank you.
Okay, because there's so much we can talk about. So if people want to get in touch with you and see some of the work that you've done, where do they go?
They can go on my website, drsiggie.com. So it's just DR, and my name is spelled Siggie. I think if they Google my name, Siggie, Siggie Cohen, Cohen, they find, there's another website I'm on, which is Good Life Academy. It's my therapy center, community center in Tarzana. You can find me on Facebook. I'm out there. I've written articles and stuff.
And is it on Facebook where you have the videos, or is it on YouTube?
No, it's mostly on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay, so check her out on Facebook, because I love your videos. I love your because you take a little snippet of life and you just talk about it in a couple minutes, and it's really good. They're really wonderful, and I want to thank you so much again for coming on the show and your wonderful wisdom.
Thank you. Really, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the shout out and the support. Yeah.
So, folks, again, my guest has been Dr. Siggie Cohen. You can find out more by going to drsiggie, SIGGIE.com. And if you dug this show and you want to share this with anybody, and that should be everybody, please make sure that you subscribe to the podcast, or also you can subscribe to YouTube, the YouTube channel for this program, and you can send this show as an email or post it on your social media, whatever it takes, but get the word out. Thank you again, Dr. Siggie Cohen. I appreciate you so much. And I appreciate you, listeners. Thank you so much. Remember to always think out of the box. Until next time, bye for now.